the DCEU, a cinematic world that somehow manages to turn fan-favorite villains into laughable jokes or utter disappointments, all while stumbling from failure to failure. Justice League was a mess. Suicide Squad, yes, even the good one, had its issues. And Wonder Woman, 1984. Well, the less said, the better. But no one feels this failure more than the villains, who often get the short end of the stick, either being miscast, stripped of their depth, or just plain ruined. I'm not just talking about their looks, though, good grief, some of them really missed the mark in that department. I'm going to dive into everything, how well they captured their comic personalities, because apparently that's a foreign concept to directors, their powers or lack thereof, and how their stories translate from the pages to the screen. So, let's ask the big question. Does it even matter if these villains are remotely close to their comic counterparts? Will they ever be as memorable as the ones who actually worked? Or are they just going to be the kind of forgettable disasters that leave us shaking our heads wondering, well, let's find out as we explore the top 10 worst adapted villains in the DCU. Coming in at number 10, we have a fan favorite for fan hate, Jared Leto's Joker from Suicide Squad, 2016. Now, as we all know in the comics, the Joker is a criminal genius, a psychotic mastermind, and one of the most terrifying villains in the Batman universe. But in the DCEU, well, Leto's Joker looks like he wandered out of a bad mixtape and into a neon-soaked nightmare, with tattoos that scream, "I'm edgy," and a grill that suggests he's been hanging out with more rappers than Gotham's finest. This Joker is less insane mastermind, and more that one guy you hope never gets invited to your party. His fashion choices alone are a crime against style. Who thought the Joker would ever need a damaged forehead tattoo? As if to remind us that he's not just misunderstood, but deeply confused. And don't even get me started on his relationship with Harley Quinn, more awkward than a high school prom date. In a movie with a killer soundtrack and a supposed wild atmosphere, Leto's Joker feels like a missed opportunity, a jarring misstep in a long line of adaptations. Instead of chaos and terror, we got a villain who looks like he's been playing dress-up in a Hot Topic clearance bin. If the Joker were any less intimidating, he'd be handing out balloons at a kid's party instead of striking fear into Gotham. At number 9, Suicide Squad comes in again going 2 for 2, but I just have to put Enchantress here, or as I like to call her, the interpretive dancer of doom. In the comics, Enchantress is a mystical powerhouse, a legit menace to Wonder Woman and the Justice League alike. But in the DCEU, she's downgraded to a possessed yoga instructor who sways around like she's trapped in a TikTok dance challenge. Her villainous plan, if you can even call it that, is about as clear as mud. Something about an ancient trinket and creating a forgettable CGI army of faceless goons. Instead of unleashing her jaw-dropping magical might, the movie settles for a finale that looks like a laser light show gone wrong. It's a waste of a fantastic character, reducing her to little more than a gyrating cliche with zero charisma. At number 8, we have Lex Luther from Batman vs Superman, or rather, a bizarre tech bro fever dream loosely inspired by him. In the comics, Luther is the ultimate intellectual titan, a master strategist, ruthless businessman, and the kind of villain who can justify his vendetta against Superman with chilling logic. But the DCU gives us whatever Jesse Eisenberg is doing. Instead of the cold, calculating nemesis we deserve, we get a jittery, babbling hipster who seems one bad day away from starting a podcast about kombucha and world domination. His genius schemes feel more like the ramblings of someone who read The Art of War while chugging Red Bull, erratic, emotional, and about as intimidating as a kid throwing a tantrum at a chess club. This Lex is impossible to take seriously. At number 7, it's Aries from Wonder Woman, the God of War, or at least a low-budget cosplay version of him. In the comics, Aries is a master of chaos, a terrifyingly powerful puppet master who can orchestrate wars with just a whisper. But in the DCEU, he's basically a last-minute boss fight made of CGI leftovers. Instead of a complex and sinister manipulator lurking in the shadows, Aries is just a grumpy dude who reveals himself like, "Surprise, it's me!" and then proceeds to shout generic villain lines while hurling special effects at Wonder Woman. The big twist of his identity lands with all the impact of a damp firecracker, and the film wastes an incredible opportunity to craft a god-level antagonist. Instead, we're left with a cartoonish baddie whose master plan might as well be punch things until world domination happens. At number 6, we have Steppenwolf from Justice League, a villain so bland he makes plain toast look spicy. Steppenwolf is supposed to be a cunning warlord, and one of Darkseid's top lieutenants, a genuine threat with brains and brawn, but in the DCEU, he's reduced to a glorified delivery boy for the mother boxes, with all the depth of a wet cardboard cutout. His motivations are so basic, conquer Earth because reasons, that even his CGI face looks bored. Speaking of which, his design is less menacing alien warlord, and more mid-tier video game boss who didn't make it past beta testing. Given his ties to Darkseid, Steppenwolf could have been a fascinating, layered antagonist. Instead, he's a forgettable CGI eyesore who exists solely to remind us how much better the villains could have been. At number 5, it's Black Manta from Aquaman, or as my friend calls him, Black Mantard. Black Manta is a relentless, deeply personal nemesis for Aquaman, a villain brimming with complexity and rage. But in the DCEU, they slap together a rushed backstory, sprinkle in some daddy issues, and call it a day. His motivations are so basic, they might as well be written on a napkin. Aquaman equals bad. Revenge equals good. Sure, his suit looks slick, but all that style can't mask the lack of substance. Instead of a layered and threatening villain, we get a glorified side quest with a grudge, who's about as deep as a kiddie pool. At number 4, we have Cheetah from Wonder Woman, 1984, who personally disappoints me because she's one of my favorite villains in the comics. Cheetah is a tragic powerhouse, a former friend of Diana, whose descent into villainy is meant to be both heartbreaking and terrifying. In the movie, she's a socially awkward nerd who stumbles into villainy because of a magic rock and a bad attitude. Her transformation into the Cheetah is so rushed, it feels like the movie itself forgot she existed until the third act. And her final form? A CGI disaster that looks like someone tried to deep fry Taylor Swift from Cats. Instead of the ferocious, emotionally charged Nemesis fans deserved, we get a cartoonish, one-dimensional sidekick to a bad plot. Cheetah had the potential to claw her way into greatness, but instead, she barely scratches the surface of mediocrity. At number 3 is Doomsday. The abomination by committee, Doomsday, is a walking apocalypse, a primal force of destruction so terrifying he actually killed Superman. But he gets reduced to a glorified science experiment cooked up in Lex Luthor's basement, using Zod's corpse and a heaping dose of why not? His design looks less like a fearsome destroyer, and more like someone microwaved a cave troll from Lord of the Rings. The raw, unstoppable menace of the comics is replaced with generic CGI grunting and glowing. Instead of being a chilling embodiment of death itself, this version of Doomsday feels like an oversized video game boss who wandered into the wrong cutscene. It's destruction without any soul, and somehow that makes it even more of a letdown. Number 2, we have Max Lord from Wonder Woman, 1984. The monkey paw magician Max is a slick, manipulative genius who can bend minds and play puppet master like a pro. But this film dashes his essence to the side and make him a sweaty infomercial host gone rogue, running around granting chaotic wishes like a deranged genie with no exit plan. His grand scheme to control everyone's wishes is less brilliant mastermind, and more what if chaos, but shinier. Pedro Pascal does his best, but the character ends up feeling more like an unhinged life coach than a serious threat. Instead of a chilling manipulator pulling strings from the shadows, we get a man so lost in his own wish-making frenzy, he might as well be auditioning for a reality show. Max Lord could have been terrifying. Instead, he's just tragically extra. At number 1, what you've all been waiting for. The title of worst DCEU villain goes to Dark Flash from The Flash, a character so poorly handled it's almost impressive. In the comics, the concept of Dark Flash ties to Walter West, an alternate version of Wally West. Walter is a deeply tragic figure, a hero broken by loss, who becomes a darker, more ruthless speedster. He's a nuanced character, embodying the dangers of unchecked grief and power, making him a compelling antagonist when he clashes with other speedsters. But in the DCEU, forget all that depth. Instead of Walter West's emotional complexity, we get a spiky CGI monstrosity who looks like the unholy offspring of Barry Allen and a scrap metal yard. There's no build-up, no emotional weight, and no real connection to the Flash's story beyond, I'm a future version of you, sorta. The character's motivations are non-existent. His design is laughable, and his presence in the film feels like a tacked-on twist that nobody asked for. The comics gave us Walter West, a dark Flash with real stakes and heartbreaking depth. The movie gives us a literal running joke. Well, there you have it. The worst of the worst when it comes to villain adaptations in the DCU. These villains are proof that the DCU has had more than its fair share of missteps when it comes to bringing iconic characters to life. It's almost like someone took the source material, threw it out the window, and decided to just wing it. But hey, as we've seen time and time again in the DCU, the road to villainous glory is paved with questionable decisions and missed opportunities. So, does it matter if these characters stay true to their comic book roots? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's for sure, there's a lot to be desired when it comes to making these villains anything close to their original menacing forms. So, what do you think? Do you agree with my rankings, or do you think I left out a villain who truly deserves a spot on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you think the upcoming DC films will finally get it right, or if we're in for more of the same. And hey, if you want to see me tackle even more DC disasters or successes if they ever come, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out. Until next time, folks, stay skeptical of villain adaptations. And remember, if it's in the DCU, it's probably not going to turn out the way we hoped. See ya.